This video is about multi-group analysis. Multi-group analysis is another type, is a second type of moderation. The previous example that I showed you, I showed you how to compute the interaction terms, and we assume that the moderator is a continuous variable. But here, the assumption is that the moderator is a categorical variable, as I mentioned in this example, for example, gender. So the hypothesis is gender moderates the relationship between, let's say, trust and attitude. So you can have the same hypothesis on all these relationships. You can write it in different form. The relationship between trust and attitude is different among males and females. So usually we write, for example, we expect for the male to be stronger, the relationship to be stronger or weaker. So you may write a one-tailed hypothesis. So what you can see here is a two-tailed hypothesis, means we don't state which one is strong. The relationship for males is stronger or for females. But the hypothesis is these relationships are significantly different among males and females. So now how to test this? So if you want to show this in your model, I mean, you don't see the gender here, right? But if you want to show, you can just draw put another variable here as gender, and then draw some path to show the impact on all these paths, right? Like the way we showed the moderation in continuous variables. But I have shown the rule of let's say gender in one of my papers in different forms. I just put a box here and around the whole model and put a big arrow and said and stated that gender moderates all these relationships. So I will share the paper with you to see how we can show, because it will be a bit messy if you want to draw so many arrows all good from gender to all of these path or let's say these single-headed arrows. So anyway, so we want to test the moderating impact of gender on this model. Now I want to show you how to use AMOS for this purpose. So this is the model. We already have the model, and I named the model. I will name the model. It's the same SEM model that we used in the previous topics of this workshop. I just save as the model as SEM multi-group analysis. So the first thing we will do is we create two groups, males and females. So you can here, and there is a box for group management. So I just double click and change the name to male, and then click new and change the name to female. So as you can see, while I'm writing here, it's updated in the box. So I write male and female. So close. Now I have two groups. Now go to the select data files, and here link the data files to these two groups. So what I do is I select the data file. It's this one, underline, no, it's this one. It's the data file, original data file with underline C, means the latent variable scores are in this file. I open it, then okay, grouping variable. I go to this, the list of my variables, gender. I select gender and group value 1. So 1 is male in my data file. So now I assign, and the data file, I link the data file to the male group, and I told the software that only male samples will be used for the male model. Now here for the female, I click select file name. I again say select the data file and grouping variables. So the variable, the moderator is gender. So it is the moderator, gender. And number 2 means females. Females will be assigned to female group. So this one you should know. I don't know how you coded your data. So it can be 1, maybe in your data file, maybe it's 0, 1 or 1, 2. Maybe 2 is male and 1 is female, up to you. So just make sure that you are linking your correct samples to the respective model. So I've done, so you can see here 131 samples are male and 170 samples are female. So I just here hit OK. The next step is click on multi-group analysis, this here. Okay. And no need to make any changes, just click on OK, and then you see there are now 4 new models here. And if you double click on constraint, means there is no constraint, means all variables, all these parameters will be computed freely. And okay, let me show you something. Here you see we got so many labels here because we asked the software to label them because we want to compare these two groups. Now, if I switch between male and female, you see the variable names, the parameter names, yeah, it's better to say parameter. The parameter's name will change. So for example, this path from trust to attitude is B1_1 for male. When I click on female, it's now B1_2. So all _1 parameters are for male, and all _2 parameters are for female group, the female group. Now, on constraint means the software will compute these two models, will compute all parameters for these two models separately. So there is no constraint, right? And there are 3 different models. So let's double click here. So structural weights. So what you see here is this shows the parameter constraints that we imposed. For example, B1_1 equals B1_2. This means one of the constraints we put in this model. So what is this? Means we are telling the software, assume that this relationship between trust and attitude, B1, right, is the same for male and female groups. So we are telling the software, treat them in the way to be the same, male and female groups, this relationship. So we are assuming that this relationship between trust and attitudes is the same between male and female. The same is for the rest, right? So anyway, what we are doing here is we want to see whether there is any significant difference between male and females in this model. So the unconstrained model is the base model, is the general model, is the model that we want to compare other models with this model. So I will tell you later more about this. So what I want to do is I will put some constraint, those that are my concern, and see whether those models are significantly different from the unconstrained model. So if you didn't understand what I said just now, don't worry about it. I will explain more later. Just wait for a few seconds. Now, let's go for structural covariances. So you see these parameters, CCC, these are the labels for covariances. So if I switch between male and female, the _1, _2 will change. And in this study, we don't have any hypothesis on the differences between covariances between males and females. So actually, I really don't need this model, right? And the last one, structural residuals. So yeah, here. So again, I don't want to test whether there is any significant difference between the residuals of male model and female model. So actually, I don't need any of this. So what I do is I delete the structural residuals. So I just click delete, and then I click here structural covariances. I delete, I don't need it. So what is left is structural weights and unconstrained model. So you see for unconstrained there's nothing here, but for structural weights we assume that the relationships between the variables are the same for male and female. So what does it mean? Now we have 2 models. One is unconstrained, means all these relationships can vary freely, and we have one more, structural weights, means we have constraint, we impose some constraint, means we assume that all these relationships are the same between male and female. So here we compare these 2 models, we compare the chi-square value for these models to see whether these 2 models are significantly different. So if these 2 models are not significantly different, means the unconstrained model is very similar to structural weight model. This means that structural weight model means this one, right? Means there is no significant difference between male and female. You see here, there is no significance between male and female in all relationships. This is the assumption for this constraint model, right? So if we don't find any difference between these two models, means the unconstrained model is the same as constrained model. This means our models, in our model, there's no difference between male and female. So we cannot support the hypothesis of, the moderating role of gender. Now, if there is a significant difference between unconstrained and constrained model, this means that our model, which is the unconstrained one, the original model, is significantly different from constrained model. So from constrained model. This means in our original model, there is a difference between male and female, right? There is a difference between male and female. So to summarize, we just need these two models. We sort of deleted all other models, and this second model, structure of weights, is a constraint model. This shows that, as you can see, male and female are the same. All these relationships for male and female are the same. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. And here, unconstrained means there are two different models. We compute it for male, we compute it for female. Now, if these two models are different, this means there is a difference between male and female. But if these two models are not significantly different, this means our unconstrained model, means the original model, is very similar to the constrained model. And what is the constrained model? Male and female are the same. So I just run the model. So how to run? Usually I go to output, I standardize. These are the three that I usually select. But anyway, here we just want to compare the models. So, okay, we got the results, and okay, let me show you something. Here, when you click on the output mode, you can switch between male and female. You see the results are, okay, here, unconstrained. First, I select unconstrained. So I can switch between male and female. You see all results are changing. Maybe I can zoom in. So there are different path coefficients, different covariances, different R squares, different path coefficients for male and female in unconstrained. But let's have a look at the constraint model. So when I switch between male and female, you see the path coefficient, the regression coefficients are not changing. They are the same. They are the same. Why? Because we assume that they are the same. We imposed it in software. We said, hello, for male and female, assume they are the same. So it assumed they are the same, so it got one value. So when I change, I don't get, when I change between male and female, I don't get different results for the regression coefficients. But for other parts, you see the results are changing between male and females because I didn't put any constraint. So now, let's check the results. There is something new here, model comparisons. Okay, so here the p-value, so this is the difference between the two models, right? This is the difference between the two models. So degree of freedom is the 11. This means the two models, the degree of freedom is different between the degree of freedom of these two models is, the difference between the degree of freedom of these two models is 11. And chi-square, 101.9 points difference between these two models, and p-value is 0. What is the meaning of p-value of 0? This means that these two models, these two constraint and unconstrained models, are significantly different. This means that the model fit for these two are significantly different, right? So this means that there is a significant difference between male and females. Good, right? So we need to report this, right? So this means our model, which is the original model, unconstrained model, is significantly different from constraint model. And what is constraint model? In the constraint model, we assume that male and female are the same. So our model is different from constraint model. So this means there is a significant difference between male and female. Now, we can now go one step further and see which path, because this was not our hypothesis. This was just the first step to see whether the two models are different. But we have a hypothesis. Let's say we have a hypothesis to see whether there is any difference between, whether this relationship is different between male and female. So what I do is, I go back to the input mode. So where is it? Constraint model. So what I do is I select all, Control C. I want to copy this. I delete all. I just keep the first one, because this is our hypothesis, right? Trust, the relationship between trust and attitude, B1 underline 1, B1 underline 2. So I impose this constraint, close. Now, what is the constraint model? In the constraint model, say that this relationship is the same between male and female. Now we want to see the original model is the same. If it's the same, means this relationship is the same among male and female. But if we get significant results, then this means that this relationship is different between male and female, right? So I run the model and I check the results. Model comparison. Okay, not significant. Means these two models are not significantly different. This means these two models are the same. Statistically, they are the same, right? So what is the meaning of they are the same? For the constraint model, structural weights, we assume this relationship is the same among male and female. This means that our model is not different from this. This means in our model, there is no significant difference between male and female for this relationship, trust to attitude. So actually, we couldn't support the first hypothesis. Now, let's say, suppose we have H2, which is output quality and attitude, the relationship between, suppose that we want to test the second one. So how to do it? I again go here. And now I delete all except B2. B2, is it B2? No, this is, okay, let's say, yeah, B2 is here. Suppose we want to test the impact of gender on the relationship between attitude and intention. So B21, B22 is this one, right? You can see I can switch between them. Yeah. So it's B21, B22, whatever. Yeah. So in the constraint model, I assume they are the same. This model between this is the parameter are the same between male and female. I close, I run again, and I check the results. Model comparison. Significant, excellent. Okay, this means that these two models on constraint and constraint are significantly different. What was the constraint model? What was the structural weights model? In the constraint model, we assume this relationship is the same among male and female. But our original model is significantly different from this. This means in our original model, there is a significant difference between male and female on this relationship. So the relationship between attitude and intention is significantly different among male and female. Now let's check the results here. So for male, it's weaker. For female, it's very strong. This means among females, there is a significantly stronger relationship between attitude and intention than male, right? You can see the results here too. Estimates. So here you can read the results. So I open the estimates tab, and here you can switch between male and female, you see, and even you can switch between unconstrained and constrained models. But I want unconstrained because constraint is just, we use it to impose some constraint to test the difference between the models. So the original model is unconstrained model. Now I can read and report the male and female parameters. So the relationship between, let's say, attitude and intention. Attitude and intention, where is it? Here. For attitude and intention, for male, you see I'm here I'm on male, right? So for male here, attitude and intention is 0.06 and it is not significant. But for female, attitude and intention is 0.9 and it is significant. And this difference is significantly different. So for female, it's significantly stronger than male, this relationship. Let's see the other one that was not significant, trust and attitude. So for trust to attitude, for male, it's 0.15, the regression coefficient, and it is significant. For female, it is 0.1 and it is significant. So you see that they are different, right? This is 0.15 here, this is 0.15. Oops. This is 0.15, and for female is 0.1. They are different, but this difference is not significant. So we cannot just look at it and say, okay, there is a significant difference. No. So there is a difference, but this difference is not statistically significant for trust to attitude. But for attitude to intention, it was. The difference was statistically significant. So you can do the same for all these relationships. You can check those that you are interested to know, and even you can see the what's called, let me go to one constraint model. Yeah, I'm already there. So you see the R square for male is 73%, for female is 81%, and for R square for attitude is 38% for male and 54% for female. And you can get all results here as well, the R square, everything, you know, here. And you can just switch between the male and female results, right? So this is the way you can test the moderating impact of a categorical variable, binary variable on your model, on the relationship between these variables.